Clara looked out the car window as Ricardo carefully navigated the tree-lined street leading to their new home. The town was small, with a bucolic charm that had attracted her from the start. After years of living in the chaos of the big city, moving to this quiet neighborhood seemed like a promise of peace and a fresh start. The house, with its brick facade and large windows, looked welcoming and full of potential. Clara had already imagined how she would decorate each room, transforming the space into a true home. Ricardo, always attentive, supported her in every decision, reinforcing the idea that this move was the right step for both of them. As they unloaded the boxes, Clara watched the neighbors passing by, some waving in welcome. She smiled, feeling optimistic about the new phase they were about to begin. Ricardo, on the other hand, seemed more reserved, but Clara attributed it to the exhaustion of the move. In the first few days, Clara dedicated herself to organizing the house, putting everything in its rightful place. Ricardo, on the other hand, immersed himself in work, often leaving early and returning late. Clara didn't mind, knowing he was doing it to ensure the best for them. However, small things began to catch her attention. Ricardo always seemed to know exactly where she was and who she was talking to, even when he wasn't home. He frequently asked questions about her outings and friends, always with a tone of concern that Clara interpreted as affection. One night, while preparing dinner, Clara mentioned she would like to invite some friends over. Ricardo hesitated before responding, suggesting it might be better to wait a bit so they could adjust better to the new house. Clara agreed, but couldn't help feeling a slight twinge of disappointment. As the days passed, Clara tried to adapt to the new routine. She started attending a local gym and participating in community events, trying to make new friends. However, whenever she mentioned her activities to Ricardo, he seemed a bit more cautious, asking for details that, to Clara, seemed irrelevant. Despite this, Clara tried to remain optimistic. She knew changes took time and was determined to make this new chapter of their lives work. However, an unsettling feeling began to grow within her, something she couldn't completely ignore. One afternoon, while organizing Ricardo's office, Clara found a small camera hidden among the books on the shelf. She frowned, confused about why it would be there. Maybe it was just an old camera he had forgotten, she thought, trying to dismiss the doubts that began to arise. However, the discovery planted a seed of distrust in her mind, something she couldn't easily ignore. Clara decided not to mention anything to Ricardo for now, but promised herself she would stay alert for any other signs that something was amiss. Thus, with her heart divided between the hope of a new beginning and the unease of her discoveries, Clara continued to navigate the new life she had chosen. But deep down, she knew something was about to change, and she needed to be prepared for whatever lay ahead. The days passed slowly, and Clara tried to adjust to the new routine. The house was almost fully organized, and she was starting to feel more comfortable in the new environment. However, the discovery of the camera lingered in her mind. She wondered if it was just a coincidence, or if there was something more sinister behind it. One morning, while Ricardo was at work, Clara decided to do a deeper cleaning of the house. It was a way to keep her mind occupied and perhaps find some answers to her growing suspicions. She started with Ricardo's office, the room that intrigued her the most since she found the camera. While cleaning the shelves, Clara noticed a small locked box in one of the desk drawers. Curiosity got the better of her, and she began searching for the key, rummaging through drawers and folders. Finally, she found it hidden inside an old book. With the key in hand, Clara opened the box, revealing its contents: a series of USB drives and a notebook. Her heart raced as she connected one of the USB drives to the laptop. The folders were full of videos, and when she clicked on the first file, her blood ran cold. The footage showed Clara at various times of the day, inside her own home. It was as if she was being watched all the time. She felt a chill run down her spine as she realized Ricardo had access to her every move. Dizzy with the discovery, Clara closed the laptop and backed away from the desk. Her mind was in turmoil, trying to process what she had just seen. Why would Ricardo do something like this? What was he trying to control or discover? Determined to confront him, Clara spent the rest of the day in a state of growing anxiety, mentally rehearsing how she would approach the subject. However, when Ricardo came home, smiling and affectionate as always, Clara hesitated. During dinner, she couldn't hide her unease. Ricardo noticed and asked if everything was okay. Clara forced a smile, saying she was just tired from cleaning. But inside, she knew she needed answers. That night, while Ricardo slept, Clara got up and returned to the office. She needed to understand more about what was happening before confronting him. She opened the notebook and began to read. The pages were filled with detailed observations about her daily activities, meetings, and even conversations she had with friends. It was as if every aspect of her life was being meticulously monitored and recorded. Clara closed the notebook, feeling betrayed and exposed. The person she trusted most was violating her privacy in a way she could never have imagined. The sense of security the house was supposed to provide had vanished, replaced by growing paranoia. She knew she needed to act, but wasn't sure how. Confronting Ricardo could be dangerous, especially if he was willing to do something so invasive. Clara decided she needed a plan, something that would allow her to regain her life without putting herself at risk. With a restless mind, Clara returned to bed, determined to find a way out of the situation. She knew she couldn't continue living under surveillance, and needed to regain control of her life before it was too late. The following days were marked by growing tension. Clara felt like an actress on a stage, every move of hers observed by invisible eyes. The discovery of the videos and Ricardo's notes had left her in a constant state of alert, but she knew she needed to stay calm to avoid raising suspicions. She began to pay more attention to Ricardo's behavior, trying to understand his motivations. He always seemed to know where she was and what she was doing, even when he shouldn't have known. With every question he asked about her outings or calls, Clara felt a knot forming in her stomach. Determined to understand the extent of the surveillance, Clara decided to run a test. One day, she casually mentioned she was going to the market, but instead, drove to a cafe on the other side of town. While sipping coffee and trying to relax, she couldn't help but glance around, looking for any sign that she was being followed. When she returned home, Ricardo was in the living room, apparently engrossed in a book. However, he soon asked about the trip to the market, mentioning products Clara usually bought. The confirmation that he was monitoring her steps felt like a punch to the stomach. Clara knew she needed to act, but the fear of confronting Ricardo paralyzed her. She began to feel increasingly isolated, distancing herself from friends and family, fearing that any interaction could be used against her. The house, which was supposed to be a refuge, had become a prison. In search of a way out, Clara began to plan discreetly. She needed help, but didn't know whom to trust. She decided to contact an old friend, Mariana, someone who had always been loyal and had no ties to Ricardo. Using a payphone, Clara arranged a meeting with Mariana, hoping to find some guidance. On the day of the meeting, Clara was nervous but determined. She met Mariana in a quiet park, away from prying eyes. She told her everything that was happening, from the discovery of the camera to the constant surveillance. Mariana was shocked but promised to help. Together, they began to devise a plan for Clara to escape the situation without alerting Ricardo. The first step would be gathering enough evidence to ensure he couldn't deny his actions. Clara returned home with a bit more hope, knowing she was no longer alone. However, the road ahead still seemed uncertain and dangerous. She needed to be careful, but she was determined to regain her freedom. As she prepared for bed that night, Clara realized that the key to her freedom was in her hands. She needed to be smart and patient, but above all, she needed to believe that she could overcome this nightmare. The tension in Clara's house continued to grow. Each day felt heavier than the last, and the sensation of being trapped in a web of surveillance intensified. However, Clara was determined to move forward with her plan, even if it meant facing her greatest fears. On a cloudy morning, while Ricardo was at work, Clara decided to explore his office further. She knew she needed more information to strengthen her case and ensure he couldn't escape the consequences of his actions. While rummaging through the drawers, she found a sealed envelope with her name on it. Hesitant, Clara opened the envelope and discovered a series of documents detailing not only her movements, but also those of other women. Each file was a window into the life of someone who, like her, had been monitored without knowing. Shock and horror consumed Clara as she realized Ricardo had a pattern of abusive behavior involving multiple women over the years. It wasn't just about control. It was an obsession he nurtured, manipulating and destroying lives. With her heart racing, Clara photographed the documents, knowing they were a crucial piece for the case she was building. She felt a mix of anger and sadness for all the women who had gone through this, and for having trusted someone so dangerous. Determined not to let Ricardo go unpunished, Clara decided it was time to accelerate her plans. She needed to leave the house and seek refuge in a safe place where she could prepare her legal action without fear of retaliation. That afternoon, during a meeting with Mariana, Clara shared the new discoveries. Mariana was horrified but more determined than ever to help her friend. Together, they decided that Clara should leave the house that same week under the pretense of a work trip. With the plan underway, Clara began to prepare for her departure. She packed a suitcase with essentials and left instructions for Mariana on how to proceed if something went wrong. Mariana's support was a crucial foundation at that moment of uncertainty. The night before her departure, Clara could hardly sleep. Thoughts about the imminent confrontation with Ricardo and what he might do if he discovered her plans kept her awake. However, she knew she couldn't give up now. She was closer to freedom than ever before. The next morning, with a heavy heart, Clara said goodbye to Ricardo, saying she would be back in a few days. He seemed suspicious, but didn't question much. Clara left the house with her suitcase in hand, and the determination that when she returned, it would be to reclaim her life and freedom. Clara drove away from the house with a mix of relief and anxiety. She knew that by crossing that door, she was taking the first step toward freedom. Mariana awaited her at a safe location, where they could plan the next steps without the constant fear of being discovered. Upon arriving at the refuge, Clara was greeted by Mariana with a warm hug. "You did the right thing," Mariana assured her. "Now, let's make sure he can't hurt you anymore." In the following days, Clara and Mariana worked tirelessly to gather all the necessary evidence. With the lawyer's help, they prepared the documentation to request a restraining order and initiate legal proceedings against Ricardo. Every detail was carefully reviewed, ensuring there were no loopholes he could exploit. Meanwhile, Clara began to reflect on everything that had happened. The feeling of being free from Ricardo's control was liberating, but also frightening. She wondered how she could have ignored the signs for so long, and how she would rebuild her life after everything. Mariana was a constant presence of support, helping Clara stay focused and hopeful. Together, they discussed plans for the future, such as finding a new place to live and rebuilding her network of friends and family, who had been pushed away by Ricardo. The decision to fight Ricardo in court was daunting, but Clara knew it was necessary. Not just for herself, but for all the women who had been victims of his manipulation. She wanted to ensure he couldn't hurt anyone else. On the eve of the legal confrontation, Clara felt a wave of nervousness. She knew facing Ricardo would be difficult, but she was determined not to let fear control her. With Mariana and the lawyer's support, she felt more prepared for what lay ahead. On the morning of the decisive day, Clara woke up early, her heart racing with anticipation of what was to come. She and Mariana reviewed the documents one last time, ensuring everything was in order. The lawyer would meet them at the courthouse, where they would file the formal petition against Ricardo. As she prepared, Clara couldn't help but feel a pang of fear. What if Ricardo reacted unpredictably? What if he tried to retaliate somehow? Despite the doubts, she knew she couldn't back down now. Upon arriving at the courthouse, Clara was greeted by the lawyer, who reassured her about the process. "You have a solid case," he stated. "With the evidence we have, he won't be able to escape the consequences." The process of filing the petition was tense, but Clara remained steadfast. She knew she was doing the right thing, and that gave her the strength to continue. The restraining order was approved, ensuring Ricardo couldn't approach her while the case was ongoing. With the first victory achieved, Clara felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. However, she knew the battle was just beginning. The next step would be facing Ricardo in court, where she would have to relive the most difficult moments of her life. After the trial, Clara experienced a mix of relief and exhaustion. Although the outcome was in her favor, the process had been emotionally draining. She knew that despite the legal victory, there was still a long way to go in her emotional recovery. In the days that followed, Clara began working with a therapist recommended by Mariana. The sessions were difficult, but essential for processing the traumas she had experienced. The therapist helped her understand that Ricardo's control and manipulation were not her fault, and that she had the right to feel safe and free. Clara also began reconnecting with friends and family who had been pushed away during her relationship with Ricardo. The reunions were emotional, and she was grateful to realize she still had a solid support network. Her friends were eager to help her rebuild her life, offering unconditional love and understanding. During this transition period, Clara decided to move to a new city. She wanted a fresh start, a place where she could create new memories without the shadows of the past. With Mariana's help, she found a cozy apartment that quickly became her new home. The move was both exciting and daunting. Clara knew she was leaving behind an important part of her life, but she was also determined to embrace the opportunities the future offered. Each day was a chance to rediscover who she was and what she wanted for herself. To help in this process of self-discovery, Clara began exploring hobbies she had set aside during her relationship. She enrolled in photography classes, something she had always loved, and started writing about her experiences as a form of therapy. As she dedicated herself to these activities, Clara realized she was beginning to feel lighter. The freedom she had longed for was finally within reach, and she was determined to make the most of it. However, there were still moments of doubt and fear. Sometimes Clara found herself looking over her shoulder, fearing Ricardo might reappear in her life. But over time, these moments began to diminish, replaced by a growing sense of security and confidence. With the continued support of Mariana and her new friends, Clara began building a life full of meaning and purpose. She knew the healing process would take time, but she was ready to face each challenge with courage and determination. Clara woke up in her new apartment with sunlight streaming through the windows, enveloping her in a sense of peace. It was a quiet morning, and the silence around her contrasted with the turmoil that had dominated her life in recent months. She got up, taking a deep breath, and felt that this was the beginning of something truly new. The adaptation to the new city was smoother than she expected. Clara found a job at a small art gallery, a welcoming environment that allowed her to explore her passion for photography. Her colleagues were friendly and made her feel part of the team from day one. The freedom she felt was invigorating. Clara could walk the streets without fear, explore cafes and parks, and simply enjoy life on her own terms. Each day was an opportunity to rediscover the world around her, free from the restrictions imposed by Ricardo. One afternoon, while browsing a local market, Clara found a vintage camera at one of the stalls. She felt drawn to the object, as if it represented a new way of seeing the world. She bought the camera and began using it to capture everyday moments, turning ordinary scenes into unique works of art. Photography became a form of therapy for Clara, allowing her to express her emotions and process her experiences. Through the lens, she began to see beauty in small things and find joy in simple moments. In addition, Clara continued attending therapy sessions, where she explored the emotional scars left by her relationship with Ricardo. Over time, she began to recognize her own strength and resilience, realizing she had overcome more than she ever imagined possible. The support of Mariana and the new friends she made in the city was crucial during this process. They encouraged her to move forward, to believe in herself, and not to let the past define her future. Clara realized that although there were still challenges, she was surrounded by people who loved her and wanted the best for her. One night, while reviewing the photos she had taken, Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude. She had managed to free herself from the shackles of a toxic relationship and was building a life full of meaning and purpose. She knew the path to recovery was ongoing, but she was more than ready to embrace every moment. With a heart full of hope, Clara began planning her next photography project, something that would celebrate her journey of overcoming and freedom. She knew that art had the power to turn pain into beauty, and she was determined to use her experience to inspire others to find their own strength. Clara was adapting well to her new life, but she knew that true reconstruction required more than just a change of scenery. It was necessary to heal the emotional wounds she still carried and find a new purpose that motivated her to move forward. With Mariana's encouragement, Clara decided to volunteer at a support group for abuse victims. There, she found a safe space to share her story and hear the experiences of others who had gone through similar situations. The connection with these women was immediate and deep, and Clara realized she was not alone in her healing journey. With each meeting, Clara felt more empowered. The stories of overcoming and resilience from the other participants inspired her to continue fighting for her own happiness. She began to get more actively involved in the group, helping organize events and workshops that promoted empowerment and self-confidence. The work at the support group brought a new sense of purpose to Clara's life. She knew her experience could make a difference in the lives of others, and that motivated her to keep moving forward. Helping others find their inner strength became a personal mission, and Clara dedicated herself to it with passion and determination. In addition to her volunteer work, Clara continued to explore her passion for photography. She enrolled in an advanced course, where she honed her skills and met other artists who shared her vision. Together, they collaborated on creative projects that explored themes of identity, freedom, and overcoming. Photography became a powerful form of expression for Clara, allowing her to capture moments of beauty and transformation. Each image was a celebration of her journey, proof that she had found her voice and was ready to share her story with the world. As she worked on her photography project, Clara began to realize how much she had changed since leaving Ricardo. The doubts and insecurities that once haunted her were being replaced by confidence and self-worth. She was becoming the woman she always wanted to be, free from the shackles of the past. Clara also began to reconnect with her family, who had been pushed away during her toxic relationship. The reunions were emotional and filled with love, and she was grateful to have people in her life who supported her unconditionally. Over time, Clara began to feel a sense of peace and fulfillment. She knew the path to recovery was ongoing, but she was determined to enjoy every moment and live life on her own terms. She was ready to embrace the future with optimism and hope, knowing she was stronger and wiser than ever before. Clara woke up that morning with a sense of serenity she hadn't experienced in a long time. The soft morning light filtered through the curtains, casting delicate shadows on the walls of her room. It was a new day, and with it came the promise of new opportunities and discoveries. In the months following her move to the new city, Clara had transformed in ways she never imagined. Each challenge overcome, each fear confronted, had contributed to the strong and resilient woman she had become. The journey hadn't been easy, but Clara was determined to use her experiences to inspire and help others. That morning, Clara was preparing for a special event, the opening of her first solo photography exhibition. The project, titled Rebirth, was a collection of images that captured her journey of overcoming and freedom. Each photograph was a window into her soul, an expression of her personal journey of healing and discovery. The event would be held at the gallery where Clara worked, a welcoming space that had become an extension of her home. As she prepared, she felt a wave of nervousness, but also excitement. She knew the exhibition was more than a presentation of her work. It was a celebration of her resilience and determination. Upon arriving at the gallery, Clara was greeted by friends, family, and colleagues, all eager to see her photographs. The room was filled with energy and anticipation, and Clara felt deeply grateful to have so many loved ones by her side. As she walked through the exhibition, Clara reflected on each image and what it represented. There were photos of vast and serene landscapes, symbolizing her quest for freedom and inner peace. Others captured intimate and personal moments, showcasing her vulnerability and strength. The public's response was moving. Many visitors approached Clara to share how her photographs had touched them, inspiring them to face their own challenges. Clara was moved to realize the impact her art was having on people's lives. During the event, Mariana approached Clara, a warm smile on her face. "I'm so proud of you," she said, hugging her. "You've come a long way, and your story is inspiring so many people." Clara smiled, feeling truly fulfilled. She knew her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever came next with courage and hope. She was confident that, regardless of future challenges, she was equipped with the emotional tools and support network needed to overcome them. The event was a success, and Clara left the gallery that night with a heart full of gratitude and determination. She was ready to continue exploring her art, helping others, and living life on her own terms. As she walked home under the starry sky, Clara reflected on everything she had achieved. She knew the past would always be part of her story, but it wouldn't define her. She was ready to embrace the future with optimism and resilience, knowing she had found her voice and was using it to light the way for herself and others. With one last look at the stars, Clara smiled, feeling at peace. The journey of overcoming and self-discovery had strengthened her spirit, and she was ready for everything life had to offer. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment to support the channel.